Admiral Vexstar stood before the massive holographic display, his 4 eyes tracking the red dots that represented death. Each dot was a Xerathi warship, and there were hundreds of them moving toward the core worlds of the galaxy. Behind those worlds lived 20 billion people who had no idea they might die in the next few days. "Sir, the enemy fleet will reach the Altair system in 18 hours, said Commander Zillanara. Her crystal-like skin reflected the red glow of the tactical display. "After that, they'll be within striking distance of the home worlds." Vexstar's hands gripped the edge of the control panel. In his 300 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The Xerathi Empire had been there. Enemy for centuries, but the fighting had always followed the rules. Both sides knew what to expect. Fleets would meet in designated areas, exchange formal challenges, and fight according to ancient codes of honor. Not anymore. "They're not following any of the protocols," muttered General Kexmos, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. "No. Honor challenges, no mercy for civilians, no respect for surrender signals. They're fighting like ... savages." The other officers around the command center nodded grimly. The Xerathi had changed. 3 months ago, they had launched surprise attacks on 6 coalition colonies. No warning, no declaration of war, no chance for evacuation. They had simply arrived and begun destroying everything. "Sir," said Lieutenant Mordar, approaching with a datapad, "we've tried every strategy in the military database. Formation Beta 7, the Rigelian Hammer, even the ancient Andromedan Spiral. The enemy adapts to everything within hours." Vexstar knew this was true. The coalition military had developed their tactics over thousands of years. Every major species had contributed their best strategies, creating a comprehensive system of warfare that had kept peace in the galaxy for generations. The problem was that everyone knew these strategies, including the Xerathi. "What about unconventional approaches?" asked Commander Zillanara. "Species that aren't part of the main military structure? You mean the smaller colonies?" General Kexmos shook his head. "Most of them don't have real military forces. Just police ships and cargo vessels." Vexstar turned to his intelligence officer. "Lieutenant, bring up the complete member species database. Include everyone, even the newest members." The holographic display shifted, showing hundreds of species that belonged to the Galactic Defense Coalition. Most were familiar: the Rigelians with their powerful energy weapons, the Andromedans with their advanced shield technology, the Centaurs with their fast attack craft. But at the bottom of the list were dozens of smaller species, most of them barely space-worthy. "Sir, what about species 7739H? Asked Lieutenant Mordar, highlighting an entry. "They call themselves humans. They joined the coalition 5 years ago." Vexstar accessed the file. The information was not impressive. The humans came from a small blue planet called Earth. Their technology was primitive. They still used chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Their ships had no energy shields, no particle beams, no quantum communicators. They were so backward that most coalition members had forgotten they existed. "Look at this," laughed General Kexmos. "They fight wars with metal projectiles, metal. Their ships are made of steel and aluminum. They don't even have artificial gravity." But something in the file caught Vexstar's attention. The humans had been fighting wars on their planet for their entire recorded history. Not the formal, honor-bound conflicts that civilized species engaged in, but constant, brutal struggles for survival. The file mentioned something called guerrilla warfare and asymmetric tactics, terms that the coalition military database didn't even recognize. "Sir," said Commander Zillanara, reading over his shoulder, "their military assessment is ... concerning. It says they have no concept of honorable combat. They use deception, surprise attacks, and target non-military infrastructure. The review board classified them as unsuitable for coalition military operations." "Unsuitable for standard operations," Vexstar corrected. "But these aren't standard times." He opened a communication channel to the human sector. It took several minutes to establish contact. Their communication system was that primitive. Finally, a face appeared on the screen. The human male looked older than most species achieved, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of hard experience. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," the human said. "Admiral Vextar, I presume?" "It's been a while since we heard from Coalition Command." "Commander Morrison, I'll be direct. We need your help. The Zirathi Empire has launched a full-scale assault on the core worlds. Our conventional forces have been unable to stop them." Morrison's expression didn't change, but Vextar noticed his eyes become more focused. "What kind of help are you looking for, Admiral?" "Military assistance. I'm transmitting our current tactical situation and enemy deployment patterns. We need every available ship." There was a pause as Morrison reviewed the information. "Other?" Humans moved in the background of the transmission, and Vextar could see their ship's primitive bridge. No holographic displays, no quantum computers, just metal panels with simple lights and switches. "Admiral," Morrison said finally, "I see the problem. You're fighting this war like it's a game. All these formations, all these rules, all this predictability. The Zirathi know exactly what you're going to do before you do it. Our military doctrine has kept peace in the galaxy for—" "Your military doctrine is getting people killed," Morrison interrupted. "Sorry, Admiral, but I've seen this before. You're fighting the last war while your enemy is fighting the next one." Vextar felt his anger rise. This primitive human was criticizing military strategies that had been perfected over millennia. "Commander, with respect, your species has contributed nothing to galactic military knowledge. Your technology is centuries behind ours." "You're right," Morrison said calmly. "Our ships are slower, our weapons are weaker, and our shields don't exist. But we know how to fight when everything's on the line. We know how to win when the rules don't matter anymore." The human turned to someone off-screen. "Amy, prep the fleet for combat deployment, non-standard configuration?" "Sir?" came a female voice. "Are we doing this their way or our way?" "Our way," Morrison replied. The Admiral asked for help, not a demonstration. He turned back to Vextar. "Admiral, I can have 47 ships ready for combat in 6 hours. We'll coordinate with your fleet, but we'll be using our own tactics. Fair warning, we don't fight like you do." "What do you mean?" Morrison smiled, and there was something in that expression that made Vextar uncomfortable. "We don't fight fair. Admiral, we fight to win. If that's what you want, we're your people. If you want honor and glory, call someone else." The transmission ended, leaving the Coalition Command Center in silence. General Kexmos was the first to speak. "Sir, are you sure about this?" "The humans have no experience with space warfare. Their ships are primitive. They don't understand Coalition military protocol." "That's exactly why I'm sure," Vextar replied, staring at the red dots on the tactical display. "The Zirathi expect us to follow protocol. They expect us to be predictable. They expect us to be civilized." He turned to his staff. "Prepare the fleet for joint operations with the human force. And send a message to all ship commanders. Standard engagement protocols are suspended until further notice." Commander Zillinara looked shocked. "Sir, you're abandoning 3,000 years of military tradition." "I'm trying to save 20 billion lives," Vextar replied. "If that means learning from a species we've dismissed as primitive, so be it. Sometimes the last resort becomes the first choice." As the Coalition fleet prepared for the coming battle, none of them knew they were about to witness something that would change galactic warfare forever. The humans were coming, and they were bringing their own rules to the fight. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the EDF Defiance, watching the massive Zirathi fleet approach through the asteroid field. 47 human ships waited in the darkness, their primitive steel hulls invisible to the advanced sensors that looked for energy signatures and quantum emissions. "Sir, Coalition fleet is moving into standard battle formation," reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the tactical station. "They're arranging themselves in the traditional line of battle," Morrison shook his head. Through the view screen, he could see the coalition ships forming up exactly as their military manuals dictated. Beautiful formations, perfect spacing, every vessel in its assigned position. It looked impressive, but Morrison knew it was also predictable. Amy, patch me through to the human fleet. All ships, this is Morrison. You know the plan? Wait for my signal, then make it count. The Zirathi fleet was enormous. 300 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields, their weapons charged with enough power to destroy planets. They moved with the confidence of a species that had conquered half the galaxy. Admiral Vextar's voice crackled over the communication system. Commander Morrison, the enemy fleet is within range. We're preparing to issue the formal challenge according to military protocol. Negative, Admiral, Morrison replied. No challenges, no announcements, no protocols. Just give us 30 seconds. Then attack with everything you have. But, Commander, we must follow proper procedure. The rules of engagement are what got you into this mess, Morrison cut him off. Trust me, Admiral. 30 seconds, Morrison turned to his weapons officer. Ben, are you ready? Lieutenant Ben Parker nodded from his position at the primitive control panel. Nuclear missiles loaded, sir. Conventional warheads armed. All systems green. Good. Target the lead dreadnought. The big one in the center of their formation. The human ships had spread out through the asteroid field hours ago, hiding behind rocks and debris. Their primitive hulls generated no energy signatures, their basic life support systems produced no quantum traces to the advanced sensors of both fleets. They were invisible. The Zirathi fleet continued its approach, expecting the coalition to follow the same tired patterns they had used for centuries. Their commander, Fleet Admiral Karthik, stood confidently on his bridge, reviewing the tactical display. The coalition forces are in standard formation, reported his tactical officer. They're preparing to transmit the formal challenge. Excellent, Karthik replied. Once they announce their intentions, we'll respond according to protocol. This should be over quickly. But the formal challenge never came. Instead, the space around the Zirathi fleet suddenly erupted in nuclear fire. The EDF Defiance, hidden behind a large asteroid, had launched a spread of 20 nuclear missiles at point-blank range. The primitive weapons, dismissed by galactic military experts as obsolete, slammed into the lead Zirathi dreadnought with devastating effect. The ship's energy shields, designed to deflect particle beams and plasma bolts, offered little protection against crude nuclear warheads. The explosions tore through the hull, venting atmosphere and debris into space. The massive vessel, pride of the Zirathi fleet, broke apart in a chain of secondary explosions. Impossible, breathed Fleet Admiral Karthik. They attacked without warning, without honor. His words were cut off as more human ships revealed themselves. The destroyer Relentless, commanded by Captain Lisa Chun, emerged from the shadow of a destroyed coalition vessel and opened fire with kinetic weapons. Chunks of metal, accelerated to incredible speeds, punched through Zirathi armor like it was paper. The human frigate Valiant, under Captain Ryan Torres, took an even more shocking approach. Instead of engaging at long range like a civilized species, Torres ordered his ship to ram directly into a Zirathi cruiser. The collision destroyed both vessels, but the tactical advantage was enormous. They're not fighting, observed Commander Zilanara from the Coalition command ship. They read ... What are they doing? Admiral Vextar watched in amazement as the human ships continued their assault. They appeared from unexpected positions, attacked without warning, and used weapons that shouldn't have been effective against advanced shields. But somehow it was working. Captain Nicole Adams, commanding the scout ship Ranger, demonstrated another human innovation. Instead of engaging the enemy directly, she targeted their support vessels, fuel tankers, ammunition ships, communication relays. Within minutes, the Zirathi fleet was blind and running low on supplies. Sir, reported Lieutenant Sophie Williams from the intelligence station, the enemy is trying to adapt to our tactics, but they can't predict what we'll do next. They're completely outside their operational parameters. Zirathi fleet built. Around thousands of years of military tradition began to fall apart. Their commanders had trained for honorable combat, formal engagements, and predictable enemy behavior. They had no idea how to respond to an enemy that ignored every rule of warfare. Admiral Karthik called his tactical officer. The humans are not following any known combat doctrine. They're attacking our support ships, using ramming tactics, and employing weapons we classified as obsolete. Then adapt, Karthik ordered. Counter their moves, respond to their attacks. Sir, we can't respond to tactics we don't understand. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. Major Tyler Evans, commanding the assault ship Hammer, proved this point by doing something that shocked both fleets. Instead of targeting the enemy's weapons or engines, he fired his missiles at their communication arrays. The Zirathi ships, suddenly unable to coordinate with each other, began firing in all directions. They're panicking, observed Lieutenant Grace Miller from the human medical ship Haven. They don't know how to fight when they can't talk to each other. The Coalition fleet, initially confused by the human tactics, began to see the effectiveness of the approach. Admiral Vextar, watching the Zirathi formation crumble, finally understood what Commander Morrison had been trying to tell him. All Coalition ships, he broadcast, follow the human lead. Abandon standard formation, attack targets of opportunity. For the first time in their military history, the Coalition forces broke from their traditional tactics. Encouraged by the human example, they began attacking in ways that would have been considered dishonorable just hours before. The Zirathi fleet, facing an enemy that refused to follow any predictable pattern, began to retreat. Fleet Admiral Karthik, his flagship damaged and his formation scattered, couldn't believe what he was seeing. "They're not warriors," he said to his staff. I don't know what they are, but they're not warriors." Commander Morrison, watching the enemy fleet withdraw, opened a channel to Admiral Vextar. "Admiral, do you see the difference? When you fight to win instead of fighting to look good, you win." "Commander, your tactics are disturbing. You attacked without warning, targeted non-combat vessels, and used weapons we consider primitive." "And we won," Morrison replied simply. "How many Coalition ships did we lose?" Admiral Vextar checked his tactical display. 3 human vessels, 2 Coalition frigates. The enemy lost 17 ships and retreated. "In a traditional engagement, how many ships would you have lost?" Vextar was quiet for a moment. "Probably half the fleet." "Maybe more. Then you understand why we fight the way we do. Every ship we save today is a ship that can protect civilians tomorrow. Every quick victory is a victory that costs fewer lives." The human fleet began to regroup, their primitive ships scarred but victorious. The Coalition forces, still struggling to understand what they had witnessed, slowly reformed their own formations. "Sir," said Commander Zilanara, "what do we do now? The humans have shown us tactics that work, but they violate everything we believe about honorable combat." Admiral Vextar looked at the retreating Zirathi fleet, then at the human ships that had achieved an impossible victory. "We learn," he said finally. "We learn or we die. Because the enemy isn't interested in our honor anymore." As the combined fleet prepared for the next engagement, everyone knew that something fundamental had changed. The humans had shown them a new way to fight, a way that prioritized victory over glory. It was disturbing, effective, and completely outside everything they thought they knew about warfare. The galaxy's military doctrine, refined over thousands of years, had been shattered in a single engagement by a species everyone had dismissed as primitive. Now they had to decide whether to embrace this new approach or cling to their traditions while their enemies adapted to a more ruthless form of warfare. The humans had rewritten the rules of engagement, and there was no going back. The emergency session of the Galactic Military Council convened 6 hours after the first engagement with the Zirathi fleet. Holographic representatives from 47 species flickered around the massive circular table, their faces showing everything from confusion to horror to grudging respect. Admiral Vextar stood at the center of the room, still trying to process what he had witnessed. The tactical display showed the battle results in stark numbers. Coalition forces had achieved their first decisive victory against the Zirathi in months, but the cost had been to their understanding of warfare itself. The humans destroyed 17 enemy vessels while losing only 3 of their own, reported General Vexmos of the Regelian Defense Force. His massive frame trembled with what looked like disgust. But their methods? They attacked without honor, without warning, without any regard for the codes of war. They won, Admiral Vexstar replied simply. For the first time in this conflict, we actually won. At what cost? Demanded Commander Feltar of the Centaurio Navy. They violated every principle of civilized warfare. They attacked support vessels, used ramming tactics, and employed weapons we banned centuries ago. The debate that followed was unlike anything in the Council's history. For thousands of years, the various species had developed their military doctrines together, creating a system of warfare that emphasized honor, tradition, and minimizing casualties through structured combat. The humans had shattered that system in a single engagement. "May I remind the Council," said General Mordix of the Andromedan fleet, "that we are facing extinction. The Zirathi Empire has abandoned all pretense of honorable combat. They attack civilian targets, ignore surrender signals, and show no mercy to prisoners. That doesn't mean we should abandon our principles," argued Admiral Kelthas of the Vegan Confederation. "If we fight like barbarians, how are we different from them?" The Council chamber fell silent as a new voice joined the discussion. Commander Jake Morrison materialized as a hologram at the table, his simple Earth defense force uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate military dress of the other species. "Admiral Vexstar, thank you for including us in this discussion," Morrison said. "I understand there are some concerns about our tactics." "Concerns?" General Vexmos' voice rose. "Commander, your forces violated every code of military conduct. You attacked without formal declaration, targeted non-combatants, and used weapons of mass destruction." Morrison's expression remained calm. "General, with respect, we targeted military objectives using available weapons. Every ship we destroyed was armed and shooting at us. Every facility we attacked was supporting the enemy war effort." "You attacked their fuel ships," protested Commander Feltar. "Those vessels were operated by civilians. Civilians who were supplying fuel to warships that were trying to kill us," Morrison replied. "In war, there are known combatants. There are only people who are shooting at you and people who are helping the people shooting at you." The statement sent a shock wave through the Council. Captain Ryan Torres, Morrison's tactical advisor, stepped forward to address the group. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I speak freely? Your approach to warfare is getting people killed. Every day you spend fighting honorably is another day the Zirathi have to strengthen their positions, move their fleets, and plan their next attack. What you're suggesting," said Admiral Kelthas slowly, "is total war, war without limits, without honor, without mercy." "No," Morrison corrected. "What we're suggesting is effective war. War that ends quickly and saves lives. Every engagement you fight according to your rules gives the enemy exactly what they want: time." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing the debate, spoke up. "The Zirathi have been studying your tactics for centuries. They know exactly what you're going to do before you do it. Every formation, every strategy, every response, it's all in their database." "But they don't know our tactics," added Captain Lisa Chun. "They can't predict what they've never seen before." "That's our advantage." General Mordax leaned forward. "Commander Morrison, are you saying that our entire military doctrine is wrong?" "I'm saying it's predictable," Morrison replied. "And in war, predictable means dead. Your enemies know your playbook because you've been using the same plays for thousands of years." The Council members exchanged uncertain glances. The implications of what the humans were suggesting went far beyond military tactics. They were asking the galaxy's most ancient civilizations to abandon fundamental beliefs about honor, courage, and the nature of conflict itself. "Commander," said Admiral Vexstar carefully, "what exactly are you proposing?" "Joint training operations," Morrison answered. "Let us teach your people our methods." Not to replace your technology or your courage, but to give you options your enemies don't expect. You want to teach us to fight like you? Said Commander Feltar with obvious distaste. I want to teach you to win, Morrison replied. The question is whether you want to learn. Captain Nicole Adams, who had been monitoring enemy communications during the first engagement, presented her analysis to the Council. The Zirathi are confused. Their battle reports describe our tactics as incomprehensible and outside all known parameters. They're trying to adapt, but they don't understand what they're adapting to. That confusion is our weapon, added Major Tyler Evans. Every time. They think they've figured us out. We do something else they don't expect. But only if we keep changing, keep adapting, keep thinking differently. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for maintaining their traditional approaches, insisting that honor in warfare was more important than victory. Others, seeing the effectiveness of human tactics, pushed for immediate adoption of the new methods. The fundamental question, said General Dexmos finally, is whether we can maintain our civilization while fighting like them. General, Morrison said quietly, let me ask you something. How many civilian populations have the Zirathi destroyed in the past 6 months? Dexmos consulted his datapad. 17 colonies, approximately 40 million people. And how many more will die if this war continues for another year? The general was quiet for a long moment. Hundreds of millions. Then tell me, General, what's more important, maintaining your honor or saving those lives? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Every member of the council understood the choice they were facing. They could continue fighting, according to their ancient codes, and watch their civilization slowly die, or they could embrace methods that violated everything they believed about warfare. If we do this, said Admiral Kalthus slowly, if we adopt your tactics, what guarantees do we have that we won't become like our enemies? You have my word, Morrison replied, that we'll teach you to fight effectively, not to fight without purpose. The goal is to end this war quickly and save lives. That's always been the goal. Lieutenant Sophie Williams, the human intelligence officer, added, the faster we win, the fewer people die on both sides. Every day this war continues, more families lose their loved ones. Honorable warfare is a luxury we can't afford when genocide is on the table. Admiral Vextar looked around the council chamber at the faces of his colleagues. Some showed determination, others fear, but all showed the weight of the decision they faced. I'm calling for a vote, he announced. All in favor of joint training operations with human forces, integrating their tactical methods into our military doctrine. The vote was closer than anyone expected. 24 species voted in favor, 23 against. The galaxy's military future would be decided by a single vote. The motion passes, Admiral Vextar announced. We will begin joint training operations immediately. May the ancestors forgive us for what we're about to become. As the council session ended, the representatives dispersed to their ships and planets, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. The ancient codes of warfare were about to be replaced by something more effective but less noble. Commander Morrison remained behind as the other holograms faded. Admiral, you've made the right choice. It won't be easy, but it's necessary. I hope you're right, Commander, Vextar replied. Because if we're wrong, we'll have sacrificed everything that made us civilized. No, Admiral, Morrison said softly. If we're wrong, we'll have sacrificed everything that made us alive. The paradigm had shifted. The galaxy was about to learn a new way to fight. The joint training facility on Kepler Station had never seen anything like it. Officers from 47 different species stood in the massive simulation chamber, watching as Commander Alex Barnes explained the basic principles of human warfare. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. The first rule of effective combat, Barnes said, walking in front of the holographic display, is that there are no rules. Your enemy will try to kill you using whatever method works. Best, your job is to kill them first. Captain Veltar of the Centaurian Navy raised one of his 4 arms. Commander, what you're describing isn't warfare, it's murder. It's survival, Barnes replied calmly. The difference is that murder is personal. War is about achieving objectives. If you can achieve your objectives without killing anyone, great. If you can't, then you do what's necessary. The alien officers shifted uncomfortably. Wing Commander Thelenas of the Andromedan Fleet spoke up. In our culture, we announce our presence to the enemy so they may prepare adequate defenses. This ensures a fair fight. And that's exactly why you're losing, said Lieutenant Grace Miller, Barnes' assistant instructor. You're giving your enemies time to kill you. Every second you spend being fair is another second they have to target your ships. The training session was not going well. For 3 days, the human instructors had been trying to teach alien officers the basics of asymmetric warfare, but the concepts seemed to violate everything the aliens believed about combat. Let me show you something, Barnes said, activating the holographic simulator. This is a standard coalition engagement. Captain Veltar, please demonstrate your fleet's approach to attacking an enemy position. The Centauran officer stepped forward and began arranging holographic ships in a textbook. Formation. We approach in battle line formation, transmit our challenge to the enemy, and wait for their response. Once they acknowledge, we close to optimal firing range and engage. Perfect, Barnes said. Now, Lieutenant Miller, show them how we would approach the same target. Miller took control of the simulation. Instead of forming a battle line, the human ships scattered in all directions. Some hid behind nearby asteroids, others powered down to minimal energy signatures, and a few launched small probes toward the enemy position. What are you doing? Asked General Kexmos of the Rigelian Defense Force. Your ships are spread out, vulnerable, and you haven't issued any challenge. We're gathering intelligence, Miller explained. Those probes are scanning the enemy position, looking for weak points. The ships behind asteroids are waiting for the right moment to strike. The powered-down ships are invisible to enemy sensors. But you haven't announced your intentions, protested Commander Zilanara. How will the enemy know you're there? They won't, Miller said with a slight smile. That's the point. The simulation continued as the human ships launched a coordinated attack from multiple directions. The enemy position, expecting a traditional frontal assault, was caught completely off guard and destroyed within minutes. Impressive, admitted Admiral Vextar, who had been observing the training sessions, but disturbing. You attacked without warning, without honor, without giving the enemy a chance to defend themselves. Admiral, Barnes said, let me ask you something. In the last engagement with the Zirathi, how many of your people died? Vextar consulted his datapad. 317 officers and crew. And how many of those deaths could have been prevented if you had ended the battle? Faster? The question hung in the air. Everyone in the room knew the answer, but few wanted to admit it. Captain Matt Sullivan, another human instructor, demonstrated the next concept. This is what we call total war. Instead of just fighting the enemy's military forces, we target their ability to fight. He activated another simulation showing a typical military engagement. In your traditional approach, you attack enemy warships and military installations. But look at what supports those forces. The display highlighted supply convoys, fuel depots, communication centers, and manufacturing facilities. Every warship needs fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and food. Every battle fleet needs coordination and intelligence. Take away those support systems and the enemy can't fight. But those facilities are operated by civilians, objected General Mordex. Attacking them would be barbaric. Would it? Asked Captain Nicole Adams, joining the discussion. Let's say there's a factory making missiles that are being used to attack your colonies. The factory is run by civilians, but every missile it produces could kill 1,000 of your people. Do you attack the factory or let your people die? The alien officers struggled with the concept. Colonel Emma Brooks, the human logistics specialist, tried a different approach. Think of it this way, she said. A traditional battle is like a sword fight. Each fighter tries to defeat the other with skill and honor, but war isn't a sword fight. War is like cutting down a tree. You can attack the branches one by one, or you can cut the trunk and let the whole tree fall. That's a disturbing analogy, said Commander Feltar. It's an effective one, Brooks replied. Every day you spend fighting branches is another day the enemy has to grow stronger. The breakthrough came during the 4th day of training. Lieutenant Ben Parker was running a simulation with a mixed group of human and alien officers when Captain Lisa Chun, the human destroyer commander, demonstrated something called electronic warfare. Instead of destroying enemy ships, Chun explained, we're going to blind them, confuse them, and make them fight each other. The simulation showed human ships using jamming devices, false sensor readings, and hacked communications to turn an enemy fleet against itself. The alien officers watched in fascination as Zirathi ships began firing on each other, believing they were under attack from multiple directions. Incredible, breathed Wing Commander Thelinas. You turned their own weapons against them, and we didn't have to destroy a single ship, Chun added. They destroyed themselves. This concept seemed to resonate with the aliens more than the direct attacks. The idea of using the enemy's strengths against them, rather than simply overpowering them, appealed to their sense of tactical elegance. But how do you maintain unit cohesion when you're scattered across the battlefield? Asked General Kexmos. How do you coordinate without formal command structure? Major Tyler Evans stepped forward. We don't use formal command structure. We use mission-type orders. Every unit commander knows the objective and has the authority to achieve it however they think best. That's chaos, protested Captain Veltar. That's flexibility, Evans corrected. When the enemy destroys your command ship, your fleet doesn't fall apart. When your original plan fails, your commanders adapt. When the situation changes, you change with it. The training continued for 2 weeks. Slowly, gradually, some of the alien officers began to understand the human approach to warfare. They started to see the effectiveness of surprise attacks, the value of targeting support systems, and the importance of adaptability over rigid doctrine. Admiral Vextar watched the progress with mixed feelings. The alien officers were becoming more effective, but they were also becoming more like the humans, practical, ruthless, and focused on results rather than methods. Commander Barnes, he said during a break in training, are we doing the right thing? Are we saving our civilization or destroying it? Barnes considered the question carefully. Admiral, civilization isn't about how you fight, it's about what you're fighting for. You're fighting to protect innocent people from an enemy that wants to destroy them. That's the most civilized thing you can do. But at what cost to our souls? What's the cost to your souls if you let those innocent people die because you were too proud to fight effectively? The final training exercise was a full-scale simulation of the upcoming battle with the Zirathi fleet. Mixed human and alien. Crews worked together, using both advanced alien technology and human tactical doctrine. The results were impressive. The combined fleet destroyed 80% of the simulated enemy force while taking minimal casualties, reported Lieutenant Sophie Williams. The key was unpredictability. The enemy couldn't adapt to tactics they'd never seen before. As the training program concluded, the officers returned to their ships and their fleets, carrying with them new knowledge and new doubts. They had learned to fight like humans, but they weren't sure what that meant for their future. The real test comes tomorrow, Admiral Vextar told Commander Morrison as they prepared for the final engagement with the Zirathi Empire. We'll see if we can maintain our humanity while fighting like humans. Admiral, Morrison replied, humanity isn't about how you fight. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice to protect the people you care about. Tomorrow you'll be more human than you've ever been. The galaxy's military had been transformed. The question now was whether that transformation would be enough to save them all. The Zirathi home system had never seen a fleet like this one. 400 coalition vessels approached from 12 different directions, their formations scattered and unpredictable. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching, as human and alien crews worked together using tactics that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. Sir, all fleet units are in position, reported Commander Zilinara. The humans have confirmed their stealth ships are ready. And the Zirathi fleet? 500 vessels, Admiral? They're arranging themselves in their traditional defensive formation around the planet. They expect us to attack their strongest point. Vexstar opened a channel to Commander Morrison aboard the EDF Defiance. Jake, are you ready for this? As ready as we'll ever be, Admiral. Remember, no formal challenges. No announcements, no warnings. We hit them fast and hard before they can adapt. The plan was unlike anything in galactic military history. Instead of a direct assault on the Zirathi fleet, the Coalition forces would target the enemy's ability to fight. Communication satellites, fuel depots, manufacturing facilities, and supply lines would be destroyed simultaneously, leaving the Zirathi fleet blind and helpless. All units, this is Admiral Vexstar. Operation Blindside is now active. Execute your missions. The first wave of attacks came from ships the Zirathi couldn't see. Captain Matt Sullivan's stealth destroyer slipped through the outer defenses and launched electromagnetic pulse weapons at the enemy communication network. Within seconds, the Zirathi fleet lost contact with their command structure. Direct hit on the primary communication hub, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the tactical station. Enemy fleet is operating without central coordination. While the Zirathi struggled to understand what was happening, Captain Lisa Chun led a squadron of mixed human and alien ships against the enemy supply convoys. The alien vessels provided advanced shielding and energy weapons, while the human ships contributed tactics that no one expected. Target the fuel tankers first, Chun ordered. No fuel, no fight. The Zirathi escort ships tried to defend their supply vessels, but they were prepared for traditional fleet engagements. Instead, they faced hit-and-run attacks from multiple directions, electronic warfare that confused their sensors, and weapons combinations that exploited weaknesses in their defensive systems. "Admiral," called Captain Nicole Adams from the Scout. "Ship Ranger, enemy fuel supplies are down by 60%. Their main fleet is starting to ration energy." The Zirathi fleet commander, Admiral Karthik, tried desperately to regain control of the situation. "All ships, reform battle lines. Prepare to engage the enemy fleet." But there was no enemy fleet to engage. The Coalition forces had scattered throughout the system, attacking targets the Zirathi had never thought to defend. Manufacturing stations exploded, ammunition depots went dark, and repair facilities were disabled. "Sir," reported Karthik's tactical officer, "we're losing support infrastructure faster than we can protect it. The enemy is everywhere and nowhere." "Then we'll destroy their main fleet," Karthik decided. "All ships locate and engage the Coalition command vessels." It was exactly what the Coalition commanders had expected. Major Tyler Evans, commanding a mixed squadron of human and Rigelian ships, had positioned his forces to look like the main fleet. When the Zirathi moved to attack, they found themselves facing a trap. "Now," Evans ordered. The apparent Coalition fleet revealed itself to be a collection of decoy ships and automated drones. The real Coalition forces attacked from the flanks, catching the Zirathi in a crossfire they couldn't escape from. "Impossible," breathed Admiral Karthik. "They're not fighting like any species we know." "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender demands from the enemy fleet." "Surrender? We outnumber them." "Actually, sir, we don't. Our fleet strength is down to 300 operational vessels. Many of our ships are running on emergency power due to fuel shortages." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Zirathi, trained for formal engagements and predictable tactics, found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to ignore every rule of warfare. Coalition ships appeared from impossible angles, attacked using weapon combinations that shouldn't work, and targeted systems the Zirathi had never thought to protect. Captain Ryan Torres, leading a squadron of human cruisers, demonstrated the effectiveness of the new combined tactics. His ships used alien energy shields to protect themselves while closing to point-blank range, then fired human nuclear weapons that the Zirathi shields couldn't stop. "Target their command ship," Torres ordered. "Take out their leadership, and the rest of the fleet will fall apart." The Zirathi flagship, the pride of their empire, found itself under attack from 6 directions simultaneously. Lieutenant Ben Parker's destroyer hit it with electromagnetic pulse weapons, knocking out its computers. Captain Grace Miller's frigate targeted its engines with kinetic weapons, disabling its maneuverability. And Colonel Emma Brooks' assault ship launched a spread of nuclear missiles at its weapon systems. Admiral Karthik, his tactical officer, reported, "The flagship is critically damaged. We're losing life support on multiple decks." "Then we'll die with honor," Karthik replied. "Sir, with respect, our honor won't bring back the billions of people we've killed. Maybe it's time to stop the killing." The words came from his own officer, and they shocked Karthik more than the human weapons the Zirathi Empire had built itself on the idea that honor in battle was more important than life itself. But facing defeat, some of his own people were questioning that belief. "All Zirathi vessels," came a broadcast from the Coalition fleet. "This is Admiral Vexstar. We are offering you one chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." "We don't surrender," Karthik replied. "We fight until death." "Then you'll die for nothing," said a new voice. Commander Morrison appeared on the communication screen. "Admiral, your empire is finished. Your supply lines are cut, your communications are down, and your fleet is surrounded. You can die here, or you can live to rebuild something better." The final phase of the battle lasted only 30 minutes. The Zirathi fleet, cut off from supplies and unable to coordinate their defense, was systematically destroyed or captured. When Admiral Karthik's flagship finally surrendered, the Zirathi Empire effectively ceased to exist. "All Coalition forces. This is Admiral Vexstar. The enemy fleet has surrendered. Stand down from combat operations. The aftermath was surreal. The Coalition fleet, using tactics learned from humanity, had achieved what traditional warfare couldn't accomplish in centuries. The Zirathi Empire, which had conquered half the galaxy, was defeated by an enemy that refused to fight by the rules." "Admiral," Commander Morrison said during the victory conference, "how do you feel about what we've accomplished?" Vexstar looked out at the defeated Zirathi fleet. "I feel like we've won a war, but I'm not sure what we've become in the process." "We've become survivors," Morrison replied. "The galaxy is safe because we were willing to do what was necessary. But at what cost? We've abandoned thousands of years of military tradition. We've thrown away everything that made us civilized." "No, Admiral. We've learned the difference between being civilized and being alive. Civilization isn't about how you fight. It's about what you're fighting for." The victory celebration was muted. The Coalition forces had saved the galaxy, but they had also fundamentally changed it. The old rules of warfare, the honor codes that had governed conflict for millennia, were gone forever. "What happens now?" asked Captain Lisa Chun. "Do we go back to fighting the old way?" "We can't," Admiral Vexstar replied. "Every species in the galaxy saw what happened here. They saw that human tactics work. They saw that honor doesn't stop bullets." Commander Morrison nodded. "The galaxy will never fight the same way again. We've opened a door that can't be closed." "And what's on the other side of that door?" asked Commander Zillanara. "A future where wars end quickly and fewer people die," Morrison said. "Or a future where everyone fights like humans and wars become more terrible than ever. That's up to all of us to decide." As the Coalition fleet prepared to return home, carrying news of victory and tales of unprecedented tactics, one thing was clear: humanity had done more than help win a war. They had rewritten the fundamental nature of galactic conflict. The species that had been dismissed as primitive, suitable only as a last resort, had taught the galaxy's most advanced civilizations how to fight. In doing so, they had ensured that war would never again be about honor or tradition. From now on, war would be about one thing: winning. The humans had rewritten the rules of war, and the galaxy would never be the same. Whether that was a blessing or a curse remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: when everything was on the line, the galaxy had learned to fight like humans, and humans always fought to win.